It's Shane Harris. We are live here in the studio for this final show, reflecting on the year's most historic events and looking forward to the future. Where are we headed? Where are we at? Where have we been? All of this is to be analyzed and to be looked at, and our live audience is here, as well as our panelists are here, as we're going to deal with some of the most complex events, from the election that began the year of the new president to walking away from the former president, who was the first African-American president of this country, to the Super Bowl. And we're going to look at who won this year and who we suspect could be the winner of next year's Super Bowl. And even we're going to deal with the entertainment industry and where were we at in 2017, the allegations and all of those things that pained us, but also the good things that joyed us and got us prepared, to the Women's March, to all of the various things that happened this year, from politics to entertainment to social justice. We're going to give out a social justice award. I want you to stay tuned for all of this. It's going to be a hot show. Lots to discuss. I have a panel that's going to be joining me shortly. It is our own, some of San Diego's own, Pamela Wood, Bishop Cornelius Bowser, Jonathan Harris, and also we will be joined by NBC7's Wendy Fry, who's a reporter, one of their top reporters at NBC7. All of us are going to talk about this year's events very organically and discuss what we saw this year and where we're headed. And we're going to welcome live audience comments and perspectives also throughout the show. So stay tuned. It's going to be a great show. And, of course, you know we had to put our bow ties on and rock ourselves out this year, because it is New Year's in 2 days. But we're celebrating now because we're preparing ourselves right now. And some of us, I hope, have been already in 2018. I'm already in March 2018. I was in March 2018 last month. You should be preparing yourself and getting ahead of the game. So stay right there. We're going to talk about all this, jokes, fun, laughter, but also seriousness as we head into 2018. Lots to look at and discuss. And there's no call-in this morning. So in case you're wondering, why can I not call in? It's because for this whole hour, we'll have no commercial break call-ins. We will have the live audience and our panelists share with you out there around the country in this joyous moment, but yet a reflective moment as we head into 2018. Stay right there. Don't go anywhere. We're going on our first and only break of the show. We come back on at 9:10, and we will be welcomed by full-fledged guest host of panels. Stay right there. Get on up is live now.
The opinions expressed on the Shane Harris Show by our guests are solely
You are listening to the
original
San
sources.
Diego Station of Inspiration, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. KTAV Radio. For more information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at ktav.tv or call 619-246-6131. We are also offering 30 and 60-minute time slots for your ministry or podcast. For more information on how you can become a part of KTAV Station of Inspiration lineup, please call 619-246-6131 or visit us online at ktav.tv/ministry.
Hey everybody, this is Reverend Shane Harris. We are live every Friday. Get on up with Reverend Shane Harris, live every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on KTAV.TV. Tune in for more information from the highest levels of the country to the lowest levels of our community and how we deal with that and how we fight for what we believe in. Strategy talk, strategy session, and political commentary out of this world. Conversation on the important issues and social dialogue. Get on up with Reverend Shane Harris live every Friday at 9 a.m. PST on www.ktv.tv. Tune in with me and get on up with Reverend Shane Harris.
You are listening to the San Diego station of inspiration. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. KTAV Radio. For more information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at KTAV.tv or call 619-246-6131. We are also offering 30 and 60-minute time slots for your ministry or podcast. For more information on how you can become a part of KTAV Station of Inspiration lineup, please call 619-246-6131 or visit us online.
We are live every Friday. Get on up with Reverend Shane Harris live every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on KTAV.tv. Tune in for more information from the highest levels of the country to the lowest levels of our community and how we deal with that and how we fight for what we believe in. Strategy talk, strategy session, and political commentary out of this world. Conversation on the important issues and social dialogue. Get on up with Reverend Shane Harris live every Friday at 9 a.m. PST on www.ktv.tv. Tune in with me and get on up with Reverend Shane Harris.
You are listening to the San Diego station of inspiration. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. KTAV Radio. For more information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at KTAV.tv or call 619-246-6131. We are also offering 30 and 60-minute time slots for your ministry or podcast. For more information on how you can become a part of KTAV Station of Inspiration lineup, please call 619-246-6131 or visit us online at ktav.tv/ministry.
We are back here live on Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris. We are going live now around the country. And for those of you who are tuning in, thank you once again for your commitment and your sincerity and sticking with us this whole year as we discussed all of the most important conversations and dialogue from Washington, D.C. to the street, and particularly dealing with the most important issues of 2017. When I look at this year, I think about the president being elected and us having, for the first time in American history, to have to see a black family leaving the White House, to the Women's March that mobilized hundreds of thousands of women. I think in recent times, the most major march of our time, and particularly, arguably, in history, to the very important conversations around what we saw in entertainment and some very hot albums, Jay-Z's album that really shook the charts and gave us all a very visual concept of issues and social dialogue that he was able to bring in keeping his album covered up until he released it, and thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people bought it. And once again, he made his return. All the way into the most important conversations. And when you look at entertainment, you've got to talk about Kendrick Lamar this year and what he was able to do in mobilizing conversations around issues like criminal justice reform that often brought to T.I., who has been a rising voice and who will join us just briefly to talk about his most important remembrance of this year, to social justice and all of the various topics we could all talk about that have shook us, shaped us, and given us a drive as we move into the future. Now I'm going to welcome my live panel to talk about all of this and the ups, the downs, the happies, the sads. We're going to laugh a little bit, but we're going to talk real talk about where we are, where we've been, and where we're going. And at this time, I want to welcome our live panel. And we have first Wendy Fry from NBC7 San Diego. She is one of the lead reporters there at NBC7. We have Jonathan Harris, a well-known political analyst, who's going to break in some of our most political dialogue. We have Pamela Wood, who is a host of a local show in San Diego called The Social Hour. We have Bishop Cornelius Bowser, who has been here several times and has been one of our national pastors that has really shaped the conversation around criminal justice reform, and particularly these gang documentation issues that have to be highlighted, because why should anybody be less human or treated less human? Lots to look at and discuss, and I want to begin by thanking all of you for joining us on this final show of 2017.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Good morning. And I know you all are trying to get your coffee and wake up. I have been up since 5:30 a.m., but that is my regular morning routine. I mean, I'm up at 5:30 a.m. And y'all might be wondering why we're sitting here in gala attire at 9 a.m. in the morning. But it's because y'all get on up with Shane Harris. That's what y'all came to watch. So, Wendy, I want to begin because I think that there's a lot to look at this year. And you've been a reporter. You've been on the front lines of this, dealing with the reports from a news angle, and really bringing context to, a reporter's job. I think even we could talk about that this year. The year where the reporter was a liar. The year where judges didn't mean anything. The president of the United States telling judges, I mean, all of this is egregious. Telling CNN at press conferences, you all are fake news. I mean, the reporter this year had a lot to deal with, from issues and topics and social issues to just doing the job of a reporter. Right. Bring some context, Wendy, as you reflect this year and all the reports that you have to do from local San Diego level all the way to nationally and Washington, D.C. Right. What you've been able to see as a person on the front lines of reporting this.
Right. Well, I think now more than ever, the job is so much more important because you have all these people getting more and more divided, farther and polarized, farther apart. And the reporter has a very tough job to stay, not join any movement, not become involved in anything. Even though we all have personal experiences, we all, bring that to the table, and it affects our objectivity. But the reporter's job, even more than ever, we have to establish ourselves as neutral, as fair reporting, as willing to get to the bottom of things, willing to press the issues and push back against officials and find out what the real answer is, even when they're trying to cover everything up, or even when they're trying to keep the truth from coming out. Right. So, it's a tough job. And when I look back at all these stories, I always see at the end of the year, the most important stories of the year. And it's so hard, to say, the 10 most important, because how do you say, okay, the most deadly mass shooting in our nation's history, is that more important or less important than the Me Too movement? You can't, you can't decide what are the most important stories of the year. But it has been one of the most news newsworthy years I've ever worked, and I've been doing journalism for a long time, since about 13.
Now let me ask you about that, because there has never been a time, I think, in history where the reporter has been as much attacked by the White House as ever. Bring some context as to what it means to be dealt with in the manner that reporters particularly are being attacked by the President of the United States. How do you analyze what is happening with the White House and the news cycle?
Somewhat, I think it's part of this populist movement that the Trump administration brought in. You know, the reason why he was elected, you have these counties like Suffolk County and counties in Ohio that they voted strongly for Obama because it was change, and now they voted strongly for Trump because it was change. And so I think it's somewhat part of that movement that historically reporters have been sort of like on this pedestal away from the public, and not necessarily that's not the best thing, you know? So I think people are ready for a change to that. And I always say, for me, it's sort of like I started journalism in an era where reporters are never supposed to say anything about their opinion. They're never supposed to say anything about their past experiences in life. And that's kind of evolved. We have with Twitter, you know, you see a lot of reporters often posting what their thoughts are on news stories or what their past experience with it is. And so I think that's evolving and opening up the door for criticism. I think that's okay. I don't think, you know, historically reporters have been pretty thin-skinned, you know, and I think it's okay for the public to question them, to ask them to come explain why they made decisions that they made. I mean, it's never helpful, the rhetoric that's like, you're fake news, you're terrible, you're you know, that kind of rhetoric is never helpful. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that reporters open themselves up to criticism and how can they serve the community better, because that's why we're in it,
right?
You know, so.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Jonathan. The Me Too movement was mentioned, you know, and I have really worked hard to fight and keep fighting to ensure that I'm not a part of that movement.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
God knows.
That's an interesting point. Right. That's such an interesting point.
God knows I don't want to be a part of that movement, and I don't think any of us
really.
do.
On either side, really.
And I mean, it could be anything that could explode about somebody. Anybody could take something and twist it. I mean, now I'm not disacknowledging the very fact that some of this is true. But when we look at the Me Too movement, which really sparked and re-sparked again after Roy Moore, who was shockingly, I mean, just a couple of points behind Doug Jones in Alabama during this recent Senate race. Give us some context of what that politically meant, that shift, paradigm shift in politics of the Me Too movement.
It's interesting. It's actually kind of has a lot to do with what you were saying about reporters. I think that it just showed that there's a level of accountability that probably there wasn't before, where you weren't like invincible. You weren't able to just kind of do whatever you want, and the boys club sort of ended this year, which was long overdue. That sort of idea that you could do whatever you wanted and that it was just part of the game, that it was just part of how you played the game, whether it was entertainment or politically. And with Roy Moore, and it was always a weird position for me to be in. I said this several times anytime I commented on it politically. Roy Moore was a terrible human being by himself, just without the allegations. And for me, it's like I said with Trump. If you maintain your innocence and there's no proof that you did something wrong, I will give you the benefit of a doubt. But it's just like with Trump. Trump was a vile human being without being accused of those things. The things that he said on tape. I mean, the stuff that we saw him saying on The Apprentice, on, obviously the Access Hollywood tape. So I gave Roy Moore a break. I'm like, okay, you said you didn't do this. There's no proof that you did it. But you also said Muslims don't belong in Congress, so you're a terrible person anyway. So I think there was a level with the Me Too movement of just accountability, and it was like with like you were saying with reporters. I think it was, like as a columnist, it is good for. There's always areas in any industry, whether it's your mechanic, your dentist, whoever it is, where there are flaws and there are errors in what they do.
Right.
And journalists are no different. There are a lot of times, especially with social media, there is a rush to get information out, and sometimes it isn't double checked the way that it should be. But I think for somebody to go in and use one error or one flaw, an understandable flaw in a system, to try to tear down the entire system anytime, only when it says something that makes you look bad.
Right.
Those stories usually being the true ones, the ones that don't have any errors.
Let me ask
ridiculous.
Let me ask you, John. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I think part of the maybe problem with the Me Too movement is that all these incidents are getting lumped together. So you have a state senator who like maybe hit on a woman in a bar 10 years ago is being lumped with janitors who go to work every night and literally are afraid of being raped because they're going to work.
Right.
And that's not the same thing.
Right.
But it's all sort of being lumped together. And I think we need to start, having some kind of discussion.
Some discretion.
Yeah, some discretion.
Our own discretion to
Because
discern what's
Because the stories that women are coming forward that are very painful for them to tell are they are raped or sexually assaulted at work.
Right.
And that's
Or a judge.
the founding of the Me Too movement.
Or a judge that was banned from a mall.
Yeah.
And they said this guy can't even come. I mean, imagine being banned from a mall, saying Pamela Wood or Bishop Bowser or Shane Harris can't go to Plaza Bonita because he's looking at girls. I mean, that kind of actors agree. Who gets the Me Too award this year?
Ooh, gosh. Oh.
Is it Roy Moore?
I always want to be careful because I don't ever want to be a hypocrite. I said this, and it's unpopular. I said it about Bill Cosby. I said it about Mayor Filner. I said it about anybody. If you say you didn't do something and there's not proof that you did it, then fine. Like Matt Lauer, he said he did it. You know what I mean? A lot of these people are like, I did. They're absolutely spot on. But if you didn't, and there's not tangible evidence that you did. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I like to follow our justice system on that. Who says you have to prove
due
guilt?
Process.
So I don't. That's.
I say forget Roy Moore and the horse he rode in on.
No, absolutely. Just not because of the allegations. Like I said, he's a terrible person. Just I wouldn't necessarily. I wouldn't throw him out because of unproven allegations. I would throw him out because he's just trash as a person, just because of the things he absolutely has done.
Absolutely, but when you have a teenager, wasn't she like 13 years old at the time? When you have a teenager who can default back to can go back to poems that he wrote her and phone calls and all sorts of indiscretions. Right.
Cards. There was a card he wrote to her.
There's no excuse for that. And I don't think that a woman is going to step outside of her comfort zone. Yeah. It takes a lot to go back to the little girl who is 13 years old. Mm-hmm. She has to deal with that little girl who is 13 years old in order to tell her story.
Right.
So she had to go back.
There's, it's like with Filner, you hear one thing and you think, oh, okay, and you hear another thing, and then you hear another thing, and then there's 16 women saying he did this, and then that's a pattern of behavior.
My only issue with that thinking, and I don't disagree with you.
So nobody gets the Me Too award this year.
Right. I mean, my only issue with that is just that to me,
you guys are running around the corner.
I don't know who did. I would say maybe the person who accused Matt Lauer. I mean, that
him with the award if you like. I say Roy Moore.
Roy Moore.
Roy Moore gets it.
All right. I think we can agree that Roy Moore is close enough to the spectrum to get that award.
He's filthy. He's a filthy person.
Let me go to you, Pamela and Bishop, because a lot has happened this year in social justice and hip-hop that has worked intertwined with each other in dealing with these social issues. When you talk about criminal justice reform, when you talk about dealing with harsh sentencing, which has to do within criminal justice reform, police reform, which has to do with these officers who are killing particularly young men of color, are not getting sent to prison or prosecuted. I'll go to you first, Bishop, and then connect back with you, Pamela, on Kendrick Lamar and T.I., which I want to ask you about. But Bishop, let me ask you this, because I'm going to see Centoya Brown at the top of the year. She's actually received our letter. She's very pleased with the letter she received from me and National Action Network. And we mobilized millennials all over the country around this case. Because here you have a woman who, at that time, a teenager, who was in a prostitution, being prostituted by a pimp. And she decides to, at that time, kill him because of what he was doing to her. And she's sent to prison for life for defending herself. So there's clearly an issue, 16 years old, being prostituted, and sent to life for prison for something that is not even her fault, and what was happening to her, and being prostituted by this pimp, who's known in the state of Tennessee. And the issue with harsh sentencing, which has to be dealt with when you talk about criminal justice reform. What are some of the biggest things you reflected on this year, from policy to the streets, when it comes to this criminal justice reform issue? Because you've been on the front lines, you've been speaking out on this documentation. Gang documentation in California is crazy, the database, and I think all of us nationally should understand that California has an egregious gang documentation database that is even documenting babies, to my understanding, or kids that are coming out, which is egregious. Talk a little bit about this year in criminal justice reform and what you reflect on.
Well, a few things. On a national level, I think one of the things we have to pay attention to is not only these individual, like you just talking about the young lady, and then also Meeks and so on, you know, some of the ways they've been sentenced. Meek Mill's way they've been sentenced on. But we have to pay attention to the way Jeff Sessions is kind of rolling back some of the policies that Obama had implemented in there, like with the private prisons and also with the drug sentencing laws. But also when you look at some of the things in the criminal justice system, I think what's most important is the narrative that is framed. And most of the time, when you look at communities of color and draw specifically to black people, we're looked at as dangerous, we're looked at as criminals. And so until we can dispel that, to understand that you're dealing with human beings and we're talking about human justice, we're going to continue to have that problem, to where that, like even with the gun laws right now that Jeff Sessions is dealing with, and it's going to affect black communities. One of the main places that they try to target is Chicago, but you're going to start seeing federal indictments and federal charges brought throughout the nation, and it's going to be specifically targeting communities that are already oppressed and underserved and living in poverty and things like that. And when you look at communities that are over-policed and underprotected, sometimes people don't have no alternatives when it comes to their protection. I have a young man that I was mentoring that had people that was threatening his life. He has a felony, so he can't have possession of a gun, but what he's going to do? You know, they don't trust the police to call the police. So what he does, he get a gun and get caught with that gun at his house through search, and now he's back in prison. And so these are the type of things when you talk about criminal justice reform, and the thing that we're looking at as far as like with probation and parole, and a lot of charges are being brought up against people, and because they know they can't beat it in the system, they plead to it. Like Meek Mills is a good example of that. And then what end up happening is they don't do time for the crime that they committed, but they're doing time and long sentences for the violation of probation and parole. And that's one of the things that we're really seeing today. I think one of the good things that I've seen in California, and I don't know if a lot of people celebrated that, is that AB Bill 1008, and it deals with the Fair Chance Act, and individuals who have felonies, who've been to prison and so on, now they can apply for a job without having to check the box, public or private, without checking the box and saying they have a felony, until they are hired, or not so much hired, but considered to be hired. Then they do a background check, and they have to specifically write that individual and let them know why they're not hiring them, you know, based on whatever the charge of the felony was and how it links to their job. So I think that was a very good bill that was passed, and we're hoping that we can continue to try to reform the system, but dealing with the federal and Jeff Sessions and the Trump administration.
Who's taking us backwards.
Yeah, they're taking us backwards, and we're going to have to pay attention to that. But I think the most important thing is that narrative, you know, that they frame and they identify places. And so, because all of us against gun violence, all of us is against those type of things. But what end up happening is that when you look at that, it doesn't affect the whole society, but only certain elements of society, which is people of color.
And can I just interject something? There are also programs being implemented in the black and brown communities by the FBI. They have a FBI Citizen Watch program of some sort that they're doing, where they're actually taking people into training for a few days, and they are telling them that we just need you to be our eyes and ears and tell us what's going on in the community. And I have knowledge of this through a friend who actually went through the program to find out what it was. And then he went on Facebook and posted his certification for the program on Facebook to let people know what was going on. So they're kind of re-implementing COINTELPRO. They are rolling us all the way back into the 60s. And if you want to take it one step further, why was the Prime Minister of Libya in the White House shaking hands with the president?
Come on, somebody.
And the Prime Minister of Libya is doing slave trading.
Right.
So they're not just trying to take us back to the civil rights movement. They are trying to take us back, to the transatlantic slave trade.
Yeah. Now, we're going to go on a quick break, and Amos Jones is joining us in a minute, and our live audience is going to chime in from comments to questions about where we are, where we've been, and where we're going. But before I go, Meek Mill this year became a real big thing in the hip-hop community, where those who were not engaged are now getting engaged in criminal justice reform work. I've had the opportunity to work with T.I. and Diddy, and working with them, I have seen the importance, and T.I. particularly, and I have been building a strong relationship. I think that there clearly is a real important concept here that has got to be dealt with when you look at hip-hop artists getting involved in this movement, understanding the strategic implementation of policy. Right. Because mobilization and hashtagging is one thing, but policy, and I've had this conversation, T.I. is twice my age. He would get mad at me if he heard this. But he's got shoes that are older than me. You know, I've said that about people. My uncle is here, and he's looking at me. But I think the reality is that there's got to be a conversation about more than just hashtags. How do we mobilize an effort? And I think that there's a lot of hip-hop artists who are getting out there. But who gets the year's hip-hop award for stepping out and standing up on these injustices?
I think two individuals should get that award. Jay-Z, for what he did with the young man in the Bronx. Oh, my God, how did his name slip away from me?
Yeah, I know you're talking about, though.
I can't leave the show without saying his name. And then Miles Muhammad of Hip Hop for Justice for keeping a dialogue going and sharing with the hip-hop community the injustices that are happening in the black and brown communities all over the country to ensure the safety, ensure that justice is served to people like the firing squad of police officers that killed Mario Woods in 2014, or the officer who killed Alfred Alongo in 2016, or Officer Yanez, who got to go free after he killed Philando Castile. You guys, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Yeah. But just keeping the narrative straight and not making sure that our narrative is not skewed, and making sure that our voice is loud enough to be heard over that second narrative that's going on all over the country in regards to injustices. Colin Kaepernick is another one who should get the award.
We're going to talk about that when we get back. Stay right there. Stay locked in. Remember, if you don't get up, you're going to sit down. Stand up for what you believe. We'll be right back here on Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris.
You are listening to the San Diego station of inspiration. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. KTAV Radio. For more information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at ktAV.tv or call 619-246-6131. We are also offering 30 and 60-minute time slots for your ministry or podcast. For more information on how you can become a part of KTAV Station of Inspiration lineup, please call 619-246-6131 or visit us online at ktAV.tv/ministry.
Hey everybody, this is Reverend Shane Harris. We are live every Friday. Get on up with Reverend Shane Harris, live every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on KTAV.tv. Tune in for more information from the highest levels of the country to the lowest levels of our community and how we deal with that and how we fight for what we believe in. Strategy talk, strategy session, and political commentary out of this world. Conversation on the important issues and social dialogue. Get on up with Reverend Shane Harris live every Friday at 9 a.m. PST on www.KTAV.tv. Tune in with me and get on up with Reverend Shane Harris.
You are listening to the San Diego station of inspiration. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. KTAV Radio. For more information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at KTAV.tv or call 619-246-6131. We are also offering 30 and 60-minute time slots for your ministry or podcast. For more information on how you can become a part of KTAV's Station of Inspiration lineup, please call 619-246-6131 or visit us online at ktav.tv/ministry.
Hey everybody, this is Reverend Shane Harris. We are live every Friday. Get on up with Reverend Shane Harris live every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on KTAV.tv. Tune in for more information from the highest levels of the country to the lowest levels of our community and how we deal with that and how we fight for what we believe in. Strategy talk, strategy session, and political commentary out of this world. Conversation on the important issues and social dialogue. Get on up with Reverend Shane Harris live every Friday at 9 a.m. PST on www.KTAV.tv. Tune in with me and get on up with Reverend Shane Harris.
You are listening to the San Diego station of inspiration. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. KTAV Radio. For more information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at KTAV.tv or call 619-246-6131. We are also offering 30 and 60-minute time slots for your ministry or podcast. For more information on how you can become a part of KTAV's Station of Inspiration lineup, please call 619-246-6131 or visit us online at ktav.tv/ministry.
Hey everybody, this is Reverend Shane Harris. We are live every Friday. Get on up with Reverend Shane Harris live every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on KTAV.tv. Tune in for more information from the highest levels of the country to the lowest levels of our community and how we deal with that and how we fight for what we believe in. Strategy talk, strategy session, and political commentary out of this world. Conversation on the important issues and social dialogue. Get on up with Reverend Shane Harris live every Friday at 9 a.m. PST on www.KTAV.tv. Tune in with me and get on up with Reverend Shane Harris.
You are listening to the San Diego station of inspiration. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. KTAV Radio. For more information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at ktav.tv or call 619-246-6131. We are also offering 30 and 60-minute time slots for your ministry or podcast. For more information on how you can become a part of KTAV Station of Inspiration lineup, please call 619-246-6131 or visit us online at ktav.tv/ministry.
All right, we are back here live on Get On Up with Reverend Shane Harris. This is the final show of the year. 2017 was an epic year, but it was also a troubling year, and it was also a year of fighting through. And I want to make sure that we are reflective of the very important conversation that has to be had regarding where we've been and where we're going. So thank you all once again for staying locked in and staying on with us. And right now joining us via phone, and we're tapping in via video in just a moment, is Amos Jones from Washington, D.C. And we see him now popping on with his bow tie and his gala attire. He's in Washington, D.C., but I want y'all to know how class works. He said he's going to make sure he's in his bow tie and in his attire as he joins this finale. Amos, good morning. Amos?
How's the audio, Reverend Harris?
Here we are. Hey, good morning, Amos.
Yes, good morning to you. It's good to hear this great panel. Wrap up 2017 and bring in 2018 right.
And Amos, let me introduce you to the other panelists who are here. So as we're tapping in, we're going to bring this in party in. We're going to bring this close out and this party in. But I have Wendy Fry here from NBC7 in San Diego.
Hello.
We're also joined by y'all look alike, so don't be offended.
That's a compliment.
Jonathan Harris, who's our political analyst, Pamela Wood, and also Bishop Cornelius Bowser. And we see you in your nice ivory tower in Washington, D.C.
Well, I tried from the studio that I created in the building for these appearances, but the internet was a bit shaky there, so right. I'm glad to be here on video from a more residential environment, but nevertheless on K Street. Right. It's great, Wendy, Jonathan, Pamela, Bishop, and others. Good to see you all.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. Good to see you. Now, let me begin here, Amos, because I think it's very important. You've been covering all of our topics this year, and I think particularly your analyst perspective has been very strong here this year from Washington, D.C. You're on the ground in Washington, D.C. You are an attorney. You are a well-known professor at Columbia. You have taught. You've been down this street before. Tell us a little bit about, in Washington, D.C., what are you sensing in this last couple of days? Trump is in Mar-a-Lago. We know that he is doing a working vacation from what the news is reporting. What do we know about what he's getting accomplished on this working vacation?
Well, all of your guests have been correct so far. They've been excellent. I was tuned in from the beginning of the show, listening, and from my vantage point...
Wait. First of all, I want to thank you for the Nordstrom's gift card. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Reverend.
And it was a nice one. I appreciate it. See, Washington, D.C. folks know how to do it. All right, go ahead.
So, yes, Happy New Year to you.
And I've been on a working vacation.
Man, let your man talk.
I have been on a working vacation. In a minute, we're going to chime in our live audience, too. So we have a full live audience here of over 10 people that are here in studio with us. But yes. Tell us a little bit about what you think Trump is getting done in Mar-a-Lago. Is he getting anything done?
So what's happening now is President Trump has established himself as a very, very serious fiscal conservative all of a sudden. So that's why Orrin Hatch was on there praising him, Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan. They love him now. Now he is pivoting to a bipartisan outreach. Even some conservatives are saying that with the healthcare issues and with Obamacare having functioned properly for a while, the only way to fix this is to have single payer, which is universal health care.
Right.
So I believe what he's talking about now, you're going to see him working with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and the Democrats, and hopefully black people can get involved, in Latinos and in our urban communities in the prison reform vote, and get something in the mix here. Because he's definitely making a bipartisan effort in 2018. Some of us need to be there to do some wheeling and dealing. That's what politics is for. Politics is not church. Church is not the place for compromise. Politics is. Right. So all of your guests are correct in what they see is going wrong, the rails, the Trump issues, but let's take this bipartisan spirit that he seems to understand he has to do if next year is not going to be a complete bloodbath for his party, and let's capitalize on it.
Right. Let me go back to you, Pamela, because you were mentioning Khalif Browder, which was in New York a really strong case. And Jay-Z spoke up on it. And his 444 album, Jay-Z's album this year, really dealt with the context of social justice issues. I didn't like the shot that he took at a lot of people, including Reverend Al Sharpton. He said on that album that I think it was Al Sharpton and somebody else in the mirrors taking selfies. How do we know to trust them, or something like that? He said on the album. Took shots at a lot of people, though. He took shots at 2 Chainz. I mean, various people on that album.
That's hip hop.
And that's hip hop. And that's hip hop. And even Reverend Al, because Jay-Z came out when Trayvon Martin, all that, he donated and gave to that whole movement. That's hip hop. That is what New York is as well. Transactional.
Right.
Nothing personal. What was the breaking point, though, for this Khalif Browder case, which really drew national attention?
I think it drew national attention after Khalif Browder committed suicide, after Jay-Z interviewed him,
right.
After the documentary came out about Khalif Browder, the Khalif Browder story.
Right.
It actually changed the minimum age for a young man to go, or young man or woman to go to an adult jail to be tried as an adult from 16.
Right.
I believe it went up to 21 years old. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. But I know it's over 18 now in the state of New York, and other states are also following suit. So I'm hopeful. And Jay-Z did that. He didn't do it single-handedly. He did it with a lot of help. But like many other artists and athletes, he took his platform and he used it to find justice for Khalif Browder. And I'm sure other young men are getting justice because of it, not sitting in jail. Khalif Browder sat in jail for 1,000 days. And he spent, I believe, 700 to 800 of those 1,000 days in solitary confinement. So it also changes the way that they do solitary confinement. So a lot has, Jay-Z, yeah, bro, you get the award this year. You get the hip hop award this year because you made changes. You changed policy, and you grabbed the government by the throat. You put your foot on their neck until they gave. That's
a good point.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I have a black son.
Yeah.
And I'm a member of a group called Mob United, Moms of Black Boys United. And we were looking at the Khalif Browder story as well, and we are thankful and grateful for what Jay-Z has done, because what affects one black boy or man affects all of us.
And let us not forget Sagan Penn, which has been there. We've been there and done that when you look at the cases historically. And Sagan Penn, many of you nationally do not know this, nationally from other cities. But San Diego Sagan Penn dealt with that antagonizing and it raced him right into committing suicide, dealing with that.
Yeah.
I want to go back to you, Wendy, and Amos. I want you to tap in on this. We saw a lot of gun violence this year. Vegas happened. Trump wouldn't call it any kind of terrorism. We saw New York happen just about a month ago with the bombing, the small bombing there in New York, but very concerning. We've talked about this, Wendy. You came on earlier this year. We talked about gun violence and how do we get to reform around this particular issue. From an analyst side, what are you seeing regarding this gun violence pledge? People are saying we've got to get gun reform. What does that look like?
I mean, people have been saying that there's so many mass shootings. There's one a day that they don't even register anymore on the news because it's become so prevalent that people are going into public places, shooting people, and I wish anyone had the answer, but all we do is say we've got to get the gun reform. We've got to get the gun reform. I think it's a deeper societal problem than the guns. The guns is the object that's being used, but there's obviously so many mental health and people are distraught, and there's so much other things going on there that I don't know. I mean, we are reforming laws constantly in California, right? We just did one where making it harder to put them together, making it a more serious crime if you're building it together by yourself, which is very easy to do. To build an AR-15 or modify it, it's very easy to do. So, the lawmakers are doing that, but it's too little too late. We have the culture now of, this is our culture, this is the world we live in.
People feel like they're
Now,
entitled to it.
People feel like they're entitled to do
They
it.
feel entitled to
Yeah.
it, and so it's a totally...
And I'm going to go to you in a minute, Jonathan. They do have a saying when you go to the movies, please turn your cell phones off. So I want anybody to know who's got their cell phone on, turn it on. But Amos, let me ask you, and then Jonathan, let me bounce this off of you. Democrats are trying to reorganize, trying to figure out what to do. Doug Jones was a big victory in Alabama. Now we're hearing, I don't know if the reports are true, but on social media it's reporting that he's going to hire no African Americans on his staff. I don't know if that's true or not. I think it's fake news, but I don't know. I couldn't see him doing that. It's just the consciousness of Doug Jones. Doug was the one who actually sent those who killed those little black girls in Alabama in the 1960s. He sent those who killed them to prison and prosecuted them. So there's a clear history of him standing with African Americans. And I could not see him not hiring a staff that is reflective of who voted for him. But Amos and then Jonathan, have Democrats gotten themselves organized, or what needs to be done going into from 2017 to 2018 to organize the Democratic base?
Well, what's happening, Reverend Harris, is an alignment, if you will, in the Democratic Party around candidates who are viewed as being more progressive, that is, more left-wing.
Right.
Democrats have come to understand that, heck, if you have to hold your black political leadership to account, which we do, then certainly you have to hold your left-wing leaders to account, Hillary Clinton, right, or your white liberal people to account, Doug Jones. Right. There are competing interests and competing influences on our political leaders. And so it would behoove us to check in on them and check up on them. Doug Jones is a great alternative to Roy Moore, but he's been living in a suburb of Birmingham with 20,000 people, the high school for which is less than 1% black, the town of Mountain Brook. It's a lovely place, but it's almost like a white utopia. Right. So he has some explaining to do and some compensating to do. It's fine to live there and live your life with all the whites and be in the white country club and all those things that he does, but then you better give us 2 of those 6 positions on your office staff at the Senate, and make sure that it's black people who are going to carry the concerns of black people into policy. And on that note, that's again why you all are honoring Jay-Z for actually effecting a change in policy as opposed to just demonstrating, which is important too.
Well,
but
that's
at some
why
point you've got to change things and free
is
people.
because
So I think what you're going to see in the Democratic Party is a lot of challenges from the left, the way the Tea Party made challenges on the right after 2010. And the other thing that means is that people like Marilyn Mosby, the Baltimore DA who did try those police officers, she's facing a challenge from a very impressive young attorney, Thiru Vignaraja in Baltimore, who is also a Democrat in the primary, who's going to give her a run for the money, and who's making an appeal for all of the votes in Baltimore, black people and others. He's a South Asian. And like Barack Obama, he broke a record at the Harvard Law Review for being the first, as far as I know, the first South Asian president of the Harvard Law Review, class of 05. He's a young man. So you're going to see the Democratic Party in their primaries being a lot more demanding, if not overbearing, in calling for a progressive candidate and a progressive agenda nationally that gets implemented.
Now, Amos, we're going to go to our audience because people are raising their hands. They're going to get in this conversation. And then we're going to go to the Politics Award of the Year. Who does it go to? And Jonathan Harris is going to give that award away. But I want to chime into our audience. We have first Eddie Price from San Diego here, who's going to make some comment. You said what?
Fishman.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll go to Darwin Fishman, and then we'll go to Eddie Price, my uncle, who's here in the live audience, who's got some comments and some questions about what we're discussing. Darwin Fishman from San Diego.
Thank you, Reverend Harris. I just want to add for national news stories, make sure that we just bring attention to. One is that we've been blessed this year that we have not had a nuclear war yet, and we're still one tweet away from that to Rocket Man that could launch a nuclear war. And we have to be mindful of that because it's one of those things that once it happens, and we've just been able to avoid it so far. The other news story I think nationally it's really important, of course, is Mueller's investigation. It's already come out, just one piece of it. We have proof that Russian companies bought ads in places like Facebook and Google and other places. And we know that that fake news had an impact on our election. To the extent it did, it's still an open question. But I think those are really two critical national stories for us.
Right. Yeah. We're going to now go to Eddie Price here in the live audience here in San Diego. And we're going to start taking live audience comments and questions.
Thank you. First of all, I live in San Diego, but I'm not from San Diego. I'm from Oakland, California, so I was raised on some other stuff. You know, and as far as the media is concerned, you know, I've been interviewed a few times, and they always ask me how I feel, right? And this, you know, and I grew up on bump how you feel, what you gonna do, right? And so they never asked me what happened or what do I plan to do or what do we propose to do. They just want to know how I feel, and I feel the same way they feel. I'm mad.
Right.
Secondly, you know, we're getting into politics and Democrats and Republicans now, and that always irks me because, in my humble opinion, there's three teams. There's the white team. There's the other white team. And then there's the black team.
Exactly.
And we don't never come together, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We don't never play. They always stealing our star players to play on their team, one team or the other. And so we're never able to acquire a team and fight for our stuff, right? I'm a black man, straight up, uncut, no chaser, nothing in front of my name, nothing behind my name. I'm just Eddie Price, right? And as far as I'm concerned, throughout my life and my history, those two white teams have never looked out for my interest. They've pandered to my interest. They've pimped my interest, but it ain't never came home, right? You know, and with all due respect to D.C., do your thing, right? But I got to deal with the four corners of death, right? I got to deal with East 14th and MacArthur Boulevard, right? And politics never comes down there.
Right.
You know, it never comes down there.
Point.
You know, and as black folks, you know, we have to develop our team, and we have to play for our team. You know, Jay-Z, apparently in this Khalif Browder thing, tried to put a team together, and he was the star, but he had a team behind him.
Right.
You know, you got a team behind you in the studio. You know, you the face, you the star of the team, but you got, you know, you got water girls and all kind of stuff, right? We need to develop our team, right? Or we're never gonna win. Right. And you know, I'd like to win something before I die.
I just want to. I want to interject something.
My show. This is
Kimberly Ellis.
Right. Well, hold on.
Very interesting.
Before we go there, I want to make sure we get the live audience because this is what we wanted to make sure we do. My sister is raising her hand, and then we're going to go to Gloria, who's here in the live audience. And I want to get Nassara, who's a major leader here in San Diego, who has led on sports and fitness. He's the one who got me in the gym. And he's the one who keeps telling me that I need to come to Cowles Mountain tomorrow morning, which is a known mountain here in the county that you run up and you walk up or whatever you can do up. And then you fly up.
Pray up.
Come back and pray up.
Carry your babies up.
And I'll be there tomorrow, Nassara. But I want to get Nassara's perspective on the Super Bowl pick for next year and what his reflection of this year's sports and those who have used their platform in sports. I want to get his perspective on Colin Kaepernick.
Why would you ask a Raider fan how he feels about sports right along through here?
See, I should have worn my Chargers jersey. Nakia is my little big sister, and she's here in the live audience. She's gonna ask a question or make a comment.
I just actually just wanted to make a comment, kind of just piggybacking on what you were talking about. I think that, and I would like to see a Congress that is more reflective of what the United States actually looks like. When I look at Congress, I don't see people that really truly represent the ideals and the feelings of, America. I see a lot of people that's fighting for themselves, and it's just a lot of greed on all different types of levels. It doesn't matter what section you're on, everybody's still fighting for greed. So I want to see a Congress that is reflective of America, and I frankly want to see a lot of younger people of color in Congress because, I kind of have a feeling about career politicians and career congressmen. I think it's great, whatever, but, Dianne Feinstein, Mark Boxer, we need younger leadership.
Yeah.
We need people that are willing to get in there and really fight, with that energy. People have been in Congress for 20-something years. Sometimes you just get tired and, your votes don't really go to where they should be going because you may be a little bit tired. You're more interested in, let me secure my, my reelection and this like that. I would like to see a Congress that is more reflective of America. I want to see a lot of younger politicians, more people of color, because that, like you're saying, we need to be fighting for ourselves.
Yeah.
We don't ever come together. We're never going to be together. We're not going to get our interests across. Policy is not going to get created for our interests so that people of color can really get onto a platform that we're all equal now, because it's 2017, but it's still not an equal playing field.
Would you ever consider running for something?
That's because
no. Why not? Why not?
That's because people are not voting.
I kind of agree. I think that there's something to be said for. I don't disagree with either one of the points that you're making. I think it's important that everybody understands that democracy, or whatever shadow of it we function on in America, is only reflective of the people who come out. Roy Moore lost because black voters came out. That's just how it looked. And if they know black voters will come out in Alabama, but if they know black voters will come out, then they will. Black women, I think was the largest group.
That's right.
If they know you'll come out, then Congress will start to reflect their voters. But if the people don't engage, then it's not going to reflect you. And I do think politics has played a huge part. I don't disagree with the overall point you were making, but the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, those are huge things. And whether Democrats were pandering or not, that made a fundamental difference in the way that we exist today. And I think politics is very important, and I do think to me, Democrats are a car that needs a tune-up, and I'm fine with doing a tune-up. Republicans are broken down on the side of the road,
Democrats
never
need
to be.
more than a tune-up.
They need a tune-up, but they're repairable. My point being, Democrats are repairable. Yeah. Democrats are fighting for the middle class and things like that. But
I want to go to Gloria, who's in our audience. She's been raising her hand, and I want to get some of our live audience that's here, and let's give our live audience a hand for everyone being here. This is our first live audience here in the studio, so we're excited. We want to do this more often.
Yes, I'm Gloria with the Friends of the Malcolm X Library, and I just wanted to bring it back to San Diego to say that one of the highlights that I have for this year is Alicia Shabazz actually visited the library for the Malcolm X Library for the first time. This library was named after her father. That was 20 years ago when her mother came to the opening of the Malcolm X Library. And one other thing is that the Malcolm X Library in San Diego is the only library in the nation named after our brother Malcolm X, the only public library. Now, there are some schools and there's some other things that have school libraries, but it's the only public library. And this is really incredible. So I just wanted to bring that note out, okay?
Thank you. Yeah, that's good. And we enjoyed bringing in Miss Shabazz, the daughter of Malcolm X. It was a very stellar event that we all had at Malcolm X Library, and then that night she spoke at San Diego State. Nassar, I want to go to you because this year has been a big year in sports. When you look at Colin Kaepernick, when you look at the Super Bowl picks for next year, what is your reflective? Is Mr. Kaepernick going to get on a team next year?
I don't believe he will. He's been blacked out. Pam is over there yelling at me because
I want to let's let him go. And then
I've been blacking out football this year.
Right.
So I'm not gonna lie. I watch it a little bit, just a little bit.
Right.
So I know that. If you want my pick, I know that the Saints are going to go up against the Patriots this year.
Watch it now.
You've been watching.
No, I don't. I see. But I really haven't been. But what they're doing to Colin Kaepernick is outrageous.
Can I ask him a question?
Yes.
Can I ask you, how do you feel about P. Diddy and Colin Kaepernick coming together to buy an NFL team?
Let me chime in on that.
Do you think that they should purchase an NFL team?
Yes.
Or do you think that if they build their own league, people will transition over?
Ooh, no. I don't. It'll be rough building their own league.
Why?
It's just the support. They won't. I don't believe they'll get the backing that they need. I think coming in and if they do actually get the Panthers I believe they'll get support that way.
Now, for all of you who are wondering exactly what they're talking about, I want to play this quick clip of Diddy on Instagram. This is where he first released his idea of buying the Carolina Panthers.
Yo, this just in breaking news: the North Carolina Panthers. Okay, North Carolina Panthers are up for sale. I believe it's time to turn the franchise over to new ownership. Well, I need to send a message out to everybody in the beautiful state of North Carolina. I will be the best NFL owner that you can imagine. I will immediately address the Colin Kaepernick situation and put him in the running for next year's starting quarterback. It's just competition, baby. It's just competition. But also, I will have the best halftime show, the best selection of music, and we will win Super Bowl. Okay.
So he goes on to say we will win Super Bowl after Super Bowl, and makes Cam Newton have to answer at a press conference the next day how he would like to deal with Colin Kaepernick coming in and challenging him to the start. But I think that this is important when you talk about this this concept of Diddy and Kaepernick, who said he wants a share of if they bought it. A lot of people said that he should not have done what he did there by coming out and giving his strategy online to thousands and millions of people who are watching, who were watching him online, and him telling them his strategy. A lot of people say he should have kept that quiet until it was, time to come out and work privately to try to accomplish that. Is it possible for somebody like Diddy to buy the Carolina Panthers, or now that he laid out his strategy, do you think they're going to block him indefinitely?
They're probably going to end up blocking him, trying to stop him from doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean,
if I can interject here, I think a little bit differently. I don't think it's about what they are doing to Colin Kaepernick. I'm looking at what God is using Colin Kaepernick for, because he is exposed. I mean, 2017 has been a year of exposure.
Yeah.
A lot of things have been exposed in ways only God could have done, right? We couldn't have done it. Starting with the local NAACP to Colin Kaepernick, you know what I mean? A lot of things got exposed. So sometimes I think we look at stuff, we call ourselves spiritual people, but we look at it from a earthly way, right? Colin Kaepernick, I ain't never heard Colin Kaepernick say he want to play on the team.
Right.
He's been out there doing his thing.
Yeah.
Right? And I see God did that. He said, okay, well, I'm going to play football. I got $170 million.
Right. And even more in the historical context of the NFL kind of exploiting young black men to bang up their heads, bang up their bodies till they die. And then you have this man saying, I don't want to play football. I want to make change in my community. And we're all standing around questioning it. Right. We don't need to be doing that, right?
Not only that, but it goes as far as there's one narrative that says he's protesting the anthem and protesting the flag. And our narrative that says he's protesting social injustice. What we should all be doing, instead of questioning whether or not he can P. Diddy and Colin Kaepernick can purchase a football team, we need to be trying to find out where we can invest in them and help them purchase this football team for the NFL. We need to be trying to find out what we can do to support them as a people,
Where's
because
the
this is a huge first. This is a
We gotta watch them
major
GoFundMe.
first.
Where's the GoFundMe?
We gotta watch those GoFundMe.
And I think by him going, not GoFundMe.
No, nobody go and create one.
But I think by him going public,
Yeah.
I think that he did that so that they wouldn't block him.
Right.
And don't forget, lest we not forget, P. Diddy is the same brother who started Bad Boy Records and took it all the way to the top.
I think he was the most
He's
successful
also-
hip hop artist of the year,
He
I
is.
believe, and he hasn't made a single
And in
record.
Forbes.
Not only that,
Yeah.
he started Revolt TV. He founded a television network.
Well, wait a minute. I can bring some context
Come
to how
on.
Revolt TV was started. There was a NBC and Comcast was dealing with diversity issues, and there were 3 national civil rights organizations that were at the forefront of that movement in dealing with Comcast and NBC, and it was National Urban League, National, the NAACP, and the National Action Network. Reverend Al Sharpton, Mark Morial, and then the president of the NAACP, Dr. Cornell Brooks, met with Comcast and NBC and formed a MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding. Out of that MOU was how Magic Johnson got some of the shares of Comcast and how Diddy got some of the shares of Comcast, which birthed Revolt. So when you talk about policy and when you talk about impacting conversation, Diddy did do that. But he did that with the help and the consciousness of groups that had the legitimacy enough to go in and argue Comcast and NBC on the diversity issue, which
Sound like
formed
a team.
the... Right.
Like
Sounds
a team,
yeah.
baby.
And so I think that to your point, that if we get behind Diddy, we unite on an agenda in 2018, that whether it's black or white or Latino, whatever the case is, that we can all make change and we can see Congress flipped. We can see things happen that we didn't think would happen. So certainly I think there's a lot of context to that. Quickly, before we close, who gets the Politics Award of the Year?
Probably the oddest person you would think that I would give that award to, but I would say Hillary.
Congresswoman,
I would
man.
say no. I would say Hillary Clinton. I would say Hillary Clinton because she didn't go curl up in a ball.
I can't believe you just
I'm
said
saying
that.
Hillary
on my
Clinton.
show.
No, listen, I knew you weren't gonna be a fan. I'm just saying the woman won 3 million more votes than the guy that's sitting in office, and she did not. And whatever you think about her, she set a standard for what women in politics can accomplish. And all of those, she was graceful, and she did not. She knew she had an audience and a voice, and she kept fighting for reform and social justice, right down to not letting Roy Moore get away with what he was trying to do on Alabama and encouraging people to come out and vote. So I would give it to her. I'm glad she didn't go knit as Vanity Fair suggested she should have.
Wendy, who are you going with for the Politics Award of the Year?
Oh, I'm going to go with Hillary Clinton. I'm going to back you up. I think that's part of the revolution we're seeing with the Me Too movement is a backlash from the most qualified person for the job didn't get the job, and now women are coming together.
And not because America didn't ask for her to have the job. We asked her to have the job, and she still didn't. So
now women are standing up.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go with Congresswoman Maxine Waters, Auntie Maxine. I think
reclaiming my time.
Reclaiming my time. I think that Aunt Maxine did a fabulous job in laying out a fabric. She was the first one to call for the impeachment of Donald Trump. She was the first one to really speak out. She's been on the mobilization tour. She's mobilized young people. Mind you now, millennials were not engaged on Hillary's note. Although Hillary did do a great job with young women, and I think Amos is going to tap in here in a minute. He's boiling over there. But I think she did a great job in mobilizing millennials this year and getting people engaged in the process. When you talk about how she dealt with the context of issues and particularly laid out a plan to call for his impeachment, I think that was a major step. Who gets the Politics Award of the Year, panel?
Kimberly Ellis. Kimberly Ellis.
Most of you may not know who Kimberly Ellis is.
Let me tell you who she is. She was the first black woman to run for the chair of the Democratic Party in California, and she lost. But the way that she lost was very questionable. The way that the votes were cast were very questionable, and she was very, very graceful about it. She was graceful about it, and she still stands for her party, and she's still putting it down for the black community, the brown community, and she is still a social justice warrior. So go ahead, Kimberly Ellis.
And Bishop, I saved the sharpest for last because, brother, you are just sharp. I mean, you just always sharp. But today, I like the tuxedo shirt and the, you know,
you, bro.
No, Bishop, who gets the Politics Award this year?
I'm more so thinking about someone like Van Jones, who's kind of been framing the narrative, and been out there ever since when Trump got elected to now.
Right.
Van Jones is really on the grassroots doing some things that are working, like with Colors of Change, and you see him on TV and so on, constantly framing that narrative and actually bringing out some excellent good points and so on to guide the conversation a certain way so that we can keep our proper perspective when we're looking at the politics. So I like Van Jones.
Yeah, and Van, Van has...
Can I say who I like?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Come on.
You got me up at 9 o'clock in the morning, partner. That ain't easy to do. My political award for 2017 goes to Genevieve Wright.
Yes.
Because first of all, that's local, right? Because sometimes we find ourselves caught up in Jesus save us syndrome. Van Jones gonna save us, or Maxine gonna save us. No, we need somebody to save us down the street around the corner.
Right.
And I think she can. She has the audacity to speak to power.
Yes.
Right. And in my heart, she gets my award. Right, because she woke up and made a decision in 2017 against all odds, against all the other teams. I'm gonna do this, right? And to me, that's the mark of a soldier, right? That will fight somebody. And I appreciate New York and everywhere else, but I need something to happen right here that I can get onto, right? And I've decided I don't fight for people, but I will fight with you, right? Because I found myself fighting for people before, and then I look around. I win too. Then I look around,
and they ain't nowhere to be found.
I'll be damned. You know what I mean? So that's who my award would go to if I were able to give it an award.
Genevieve Jones Wright.
Woo!
And she's
right for DA.
And she's running for district attorney here in San Diego County for those of you on the national level.
She's the first black woman
She's
to
the
run.
first black woman, yeah. Now, Amos, let me ask you, who is your politics pick for this year? Who does the award?
I would have to give that to Congresswoman Terry Sewell. She is the only Democrat in the Alabama congressional delegation. She's the first black woman elected to the Congress from Alabama ever. She is the valedictorian of Selma High School, and she was standing behind Doug Jones on his victory platform. I believe that she, more than any other person in that state, helped African Americans realize and actualize their potential, and she's also the kind of person, from what I've learned about her over the last 3 months, who will hold to account and actually implement laws in order to help as many people as possible. So I'm going to go out and name her as perhaps the politician, the politics figure of the year for 2017. Let me also say, you had indicated that I had been a professor at Columbia University. I need to correct that. It was Campbell University, which I'm suing for race discrimination and a barrage of
Do your thing, man.
Campbell University Law School, race discrimination. They do not tenure black professors. It's a white nationalist law school now. So I want you to get that. Okay. Happy New Year.
And let me go to the last. I saved the best for last because I always have believed that politics is important for those of you watching, but social justice is even more important because there are people in this country who were never political, who were never a politician, but they changed the game. They changed the course of time, and it's because they stood up. Who does, and I'll start with you, Wendy, who does the Social Justice Award of the Year go to? What movement or what person would you like to acknowledge?
Oh, my goodness. Chin, I think you. You're here in San Diego. I like what you were saying. I think you have been, by far in San Diego this year, the most outspoken and the most leader of this movement, of the movement that you're trying to put forward. So. How about that? Do I get any brownie points for that? Do I get any brownie points for that? All right, Amos is backing me up. I don't have any Nordstrom gift cards, so I'm gonna. No, really, honestly, I do think that you are so well spoken. You're such a good performer, and you have your message down. And I think your community and the whole community appreciates having the conversation, whether they agree or disagree with you on every point. I think it's good conversation to have.
Thank you so much. That's an honor to hear you say that.
Locally, yeah, I would agree. Locally, if we're nationally, I would say Kaepernick. Locally,
Nationally, yeah.
Locally, Kaepernick. I would say I'm person of the year. Like for me, I just the level of conversation that he started and kind of where you were saying not saying much, like kind of starting a conversation by in a very odd way not saying very much, but more by acting and kind of doing things behind the scenes. And I think he filed a lawsuit, I think, against the NFL or whatever. Just kind of more acting, not so much saying things, and the conversation he got going there, which I thought was really, really impressive on a national level.
Bishop Bowser, who gets the Social Justice Award this year?
I would say I'm looking at more so on the national level of a group, and I would say Colors of Change, at least from what I know of them. And a lot of people don't hear about them because they do a lot of social media issues around social justice, especially specifically dealing with race and so on. They're behind getting rid of Bill O'Reilly and going after his ass. They're the ones behind that corporate board that Trump had set up to get a lot of those people to withdraw, some of those companies to withdraw from his board and so on. And they constantly active, and they're working with us right here in San Diego with a petition and so on, in dealing with the new chief, trying to get the selection panel and all that, and the search for a new chief. They also working with us on that. So I'd say Color of Change has really made an impact and very effective. They working with the mixed meal issue and dealing with, they taking the lead on that. So they're really out there doing some great things. And the majority of the folks that's running that, when I met them, are black women. So we see that I can switch that up and say black women are really it's really taking, when you're talking about social justice, really taking the lead, deserve the award.
And Pamela, who gets the Social Justice Award this year?
Well, speaking of black women, Reverend Bowser, I say the Social Justice Award of 2017 definitely goes to DePelsha Thomas Magruder. She's the founder of Moms of Black Boys United and Moms of Black Boys United for Social Change. Mob United was started when Philando Castile and Alton Sterling were murdered within 24 hours of each other. She got online and she started a group. Basically, her words, because I didn't know what else to do. I started this group because I don't know what else to do. She was scared. All black mothers were in an uproar. Since then, since she started Mob United, we're about 187,000 strong. And in that time, we've influenced policy. We have made changes. We have captains all over the world in different cities. She has impacted change. She works a lot in media, and she works with people to get the job done. Every day, Mob United is behind the scenes. We're not up at the forefront. We're not tooting our own horns, but we're in the backdrop doing our thing and making sure people stay informed as to what's going on with moms and their black sons.
And I will close out with my award of the year. You couldn't have guessed it right. I'm going to give the award nationally to the National Action Network. I was pretty close. That the National Action Network, and I could not give it to anybody individually because I think that a group or a national movement is what has sparked. And as my Uncle Eddie has mentioned, a team is important. I think that the National Action Network has done an incredible job in growing, in establishing itself, and continuing to establish itself as a traditional king-based civil rights organization in the King tradition around this country. I've been a part of that on the West Coast. Our Kirsten John Foy and our West Eastern regional leadership has been a part of that on the East Coast. In the South, it has been many who have stood up, including Sister Tamari and others. All around this country, I've seen this organization grow and establish itself in the social justice conversation, and is doing incredible work in establishing from locally to nationally the important organizing efforts around important things like police shootings, which really has not gotten a lot of attention from a lot of other civil rights groups. When you talk about organizing around voting rights, I think we've done an incredible job in the South, where we're a little bit more established. And on the West Coast, you can look to us to get stronger next year as we continue to grow. So I would give my Social Justice Award to the National Action Network. And of course, our national president, the Reverend Al Sharpton, has worked his whole life, got stabbed for this, to establish not just an organization, but a modern-day civil rights agenda in the tradition of Dr. Martin Luther King. NAN was founded in 1991 by the chief lieutenants who walked with Dr. King, who were his chief lieutenants, his chiefs of staff, Reverend Wyatt T. Walker, William Jones. These are the names of people that walked with Dr. King in the SLC movement, were his chief of staffs. They worked with him, and they founded NAN in 1991. And so in that tradition, we're also praying for Reverend Jesse Jackson, who this year was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease.
Wow.
And he's going to be stepping down and a little bit back as he tries to heal and get better. But as we reflect on all of this
Let me just interject on what you're saying in regards to NAN, because I thought just came to my mind about that, and I'll just say this, is that I think if you keep it for what the organization represents, which is supposed to be civil rights and so on, and you look at all the civil rights organizations, I most definitely give it to NAN's hands down, and specifically San Diego, because NAN, and we were talking about this a few days ago, maybe about a week or so ago, that NAN has really taken a lead when you look at the various civil rights organizations in San Diego and on a national level, you know. So I give it to NAN on the civil rights part.
Yeah.
Which ties into social justice.
And thank you all. But I want to acknowledge the members of NAN, the people who never on the front of the newspaper, the people who never get on the front of the TV, members and people who are part of the establishment of making sure this stuff happens. Yes, just a couple of days ago on Christmas here in San Diego, we fed over 150 people and gave over 70 brand new toys to kids, and that was publicized, and that was important. And it was people like Eddie Price who said, "I got this. I'm contributing. I'm a part of this." And he wasn't even there. But it's about people who are behind the scenes, who are part of this organization establishing, and that is what I think the future of social justice and flipping the Congress, doing the things we hope to do. It takes a team. So my end note to you today, my final note and my final message to you of 2017 is exactly what yesterday's Kwanzaa message was: unity and a team effort. You cannot fight alone. You cannot stand alone. You cannot do anything alone. You must stand up for what you believe in. And Amos, I want to go to you for the final word. Who gets the Social Justice Award this year?
Well, I will reiterate Terry Sewell of Alabama, the congresswoman, who I think was just a really, really positive influence in waking the sleeping giant of black voters who gave the edge to Doug Jones.
Okay, so social justice-wise, you would also give the person who got on your politics, you would give them that social justice award?
I would, and the reason is social justice is justice. The comment has been made earlier about how we can get together and support Colin Kaepernick and Diddy and them. And we also need to look at how they, with all their hundreds of millions of dollars, can get together and support those of us in Oakland, in the neighborhood, all these people who come to my practice because they got cheated out of their job that pays $40,000 a year, and there's nobody to help them and to invest the money it costs to fight the power back. We have a whole epidemic in the country of people who are crying for help at a policy level, but also at an individual level. And I'm giving my votes to these people who seem to understand that to whom much is given, much is required in the way of contributions and work. And that means that these elected officials and people in power and people in hundreds of millions need to start plugging into people who are actually making these changes. And I hope that that's heard for 2018.
And thank you for ending us. Thank you for ending us with your sermon. I want to end by asking all of you online. This is a station that is growing, it is establishing. And Bill Brown, when I left a local station here in San Diego and I was looking for elsewhere to go and needed to establish a platform to continue doing my radio show, it was Bill Brown who said, I'm starting a new station. It's called Kingdom Tech, KTAV.TV. And I think you're dynamic, and I think we can bring you on. You'll be our first host. And I became the first host of KTAV. Now there's other hosts following that are becoming a part. And as I go onto the national platform, KTAV continues to be something I will support and something that I will get behind. Even as there's conversations going on with Stevie Wonder's network and other folks. I will keep this in the very forefront of my mind. KTAV has been so good to me. Thank you, Bill Brown, our producer, and our team who has worked all year, Nikita Rahman, and others who have worked all year to help establish on this side for Shane Harris Enterprises and the radio show what we would need to do to mobilize a media platform. And we've been able to start that here at Get On Up. I started 4 years ago with a radio show called The Firing Line and worked on that at the KBLK radio station here in the city. When I needed elsewhere to go and expand my platform, KTAV was there. Now I'm asking you to get to know KTAV Kingdom Tech. If you're watching right now online, I'm asking you to go to www.ktav.tv. Make a donation today. $5, $10, $1, $3. Bill Brown has done this and has not looked for a dime from any of the community. He's ran ads on this from pastors and from other community leaders to continue to mobilize an effort. We've been able to bring more viewership, but he's been able to be here to make it happen. So I'm asking you to go to www.ktav.tv. Make a contribution today. If you're in the studio as an audience member and you have $1, $2, $5 in your pocket, we're going to raise an offering because I think it is important that we support local businesses, black-owned, like KTAV. Bill Brown has established a full-fledged studio here. The equipment that I have seen here, I have not seen in bigger places where there is more staff and more support, but the equipment he has is incredible, which has allowed us to go around the country, and we're able to talk to you in Florida, able to talk to you in D.C., able to talk to you all around the country via video and via radio. It's because Bill Brown's efforts have been amazing in establishing a media platform that transcends the what would be local into the national effort, but keeping our efforts local. So I'm asking you to go to www.ktav.tv right now. Make a donation of $1, $2, $5, $7. Anything would help keep this station going into next year. But if you're here in studio, we're going to raise an offering. I'm asking you to pull $1 out, $2, $5, and just hand it over to Bill and say thank you for keeping black perspective and dialogue on KTAV. Thank you for sharing with our community voices like Reverend Shane Harris and also Simone Edwards, who is another voice who's on KTAV, and Nikita Rahman and others who share an effort of bringing a platform to issues of social justice. So if you're here in the studio or you're online, please go right now and make a contribution, ktav.tv. If you're here in the studio, you can hand $1, $5, $7, whatever you have over to Bill Brown, and he will keep this thing going. But it is up to us to establish. We did it with a local station called KBLK, but I really think that KTAV is the new station, I think, that is rising in the community to bring forth a platform to ensure that the voices are heard, but also professionalism is done. Bill is here every Friday. We start on time. He's making sure that the production is right, the lighting is right, the visual is right. That, to me, is leadership that needs to be amplified. And we look to make KTAV.tv in San Diego a major station next year that is supported by the black community and is given a platform to those who are having voices. We're looking for more people to join. So if you out there, you want a radio show, you want to get a commercial going, all of that is available here. You that are listening may say, well, I want an online radio show, but they charge me over at the other stations. Or that Bill Brown is charging medium to none for you to have a radio show right here on KTAV. Charges are really cheap. The rates are really cheap. The commercials are really cheap. But guess what? The viewership is rising. You can track your viewership here. You can track your listeners. I couldn't do that before. I can do that now. That's why we're growing. And that's why we're establishing. Because if you're able to track your growth, you can establish something. If you don't track your growth, you'll never establish a following. That is what you must do. Study your growth and see where you are. And that is where I want to leave my ending notes at. So thank you all for your support this year, making this happen around the country, listening to the show, calling in from Chicago and from Florida and from California, and from Las Vegas, Nevada, making your voices heard, standing up for what you believe. Thank you. Because when you stand up, you inspire others to stand up. When you stand up, you inspire our children to stand up. That is what we must do. Instead of giving up, we must get up. So thank you all for your support. We're going to end with mine.